If everybody will grab your seats, we'll try to get started.
Hey, Keith, good idea.
I feel like the guy who's put vodka in the glass to keep in the party. Okay, everybody take a seat if you will. I know you guys like to stand in the back, but there are seats that are available. I just don't, want to be accused that we're torturing people of standing up for the next 3.5 hours that we're in here. So welcome again to our Get Connected session. It is great to see everybody in here today. We've got a number of things that we're going to talk about. Mike Hazel is going to take us through some brand strategy updates and where we are there. Julie and I are going to talk about handbooks, self-assessments, and some benefit pieces. Then I want to talk a little bit about a really, really exciting thing we have going on that's around fire and life safety education. I think you guys will be excited about that as well. And then Julie's going to do, as we talked about last time at the Get Connected, this is our chance to sort of do for our new hires all at once, making sure that we're introducing new hires to the organization, and then we'll do a little time after we're done for all of us to be able to get a chance to know the new hires here in this room. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mike to talk about where we are on branding.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Oh, you can turn yours on?
Yeah. There we go. Is this on? Okay. Can you take that there? This is funny. I haven't used one of these in a while. I feel like I'm an American Idol or something. So if I break into song, you just give me a little do here.
I'll join.
Okay. So at the last Get Connected meeting in June, Amanda and Chuck gave us an overview of the project we were working on with the brand strategy. And there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of different pieces of the brand strategy, but basically it was about developing and implementing a new way of communicating with our stakeholders in a way that better communicated our vision and our mission to them and made them feel part of the NFPA family. It was a way to really bring the NFPA mission and vision to life for people, to make it meaningful, to make it understandable. And our goal really was to make our customers and our stakeholders connect with NFPA on a whole new sort of emotional, sort of gut level. And our goal was to really drive engagement with people, to make our stakeholders and customers feel part of and feel proud of their affiliation with NFPA, and move us away, continue to move us away from being perceived as just that codes and standards organization. You may remember that this particular project is part of our 49 initiatives. In fact, it's strategic initiative number 2, so we've been working for months on this, and credit to Amanda and Chuck and their team for really getting the ball rolling on this. So what we did is we teamed up with Forge Worldwide in Boston. They're a company that specializes in branding, helping companies define their brand and implement it. And for months we worked with folks from around the association, probably many people in this room, to really try to define what our brand is. Who are we to our stakeholders, and then get feedback and thoughts on the whole process, what we're trying to do. We ended up with the campaign theme of "It's a big world, let's protect it together," which if you were at CNE, you know that we rolled out with much fanfare. In the months since CNE, we have been rolling this out in pieces, and if you've seen some pieces of collateral, this is the new FPW catalog here. We've got different postcards, mailers that we've put out. The new NFPA catalog itself is very different. And if you look at these pieces, you may not say, well, I don't see a huge change, and it's not a huge change in terms of design. But what we've tried to do is sort of across a couple themes. One, we're using more faces of stakeholders, because we want to use real people in their real job situations and not rely so much on stock photography that every other company in the world uses to define who their customers are. We're also trying to show more interesting and impactful photos. This is a cover of one of our recent catalogs. that shows an interesting, I think, sort of dramatic fire situation. And what we're also trying to do is change the way that we message our collateral. We're trying to simplify the message to make it more relevant to people, but again, make it more interesting and relevant to the folks that we serve. So creating the brand was an interesting, challenging project, but the next step, I think, is an even bigger challenge for all of us, is to actually roll this out and implement it in a consistent, strategic way. And if you think about all the pieces of collateral that we put out, whether it's something that's handed to a customer or stakeholder in a meeting, or it's something that they're going to see like a website or maybe a job recruitment form or something, there are many, many dozens and dozens of pieces of collateral. You know, it's news releases, it's our bills, our invoices, our e-newsletter templates, our websites, our fact sheets, our reports, our codes and standards. Everything we put out has some kind of NFPA brand. What we're trying to do is get our arms around everything that we have and then systematically go through those pieces and figure out how do we implement the new brand strategy on those. So our approach is, as I mentioned, a lot of pieces have been done already, the catalog, the pieces that I showed you before. But what we're doing is we have a brand team in place, and I'll introduce them to you in a second, who is collecting all of those assets and figuring out the strategy in sort of a tiered level. You pull all these pieces together and say, what's the priority? What are the biggest pieces that will have the most impact if we put those branding guidelines in place? And one thing I want to mention is that we are not looking to retrofit pieces that are already down the road, down the pike. We are looking at projects that are either new projects that we can implement the branding guidelines on, or pieces of collateral that we're refreshing for some reason. Those are the pieces that will be in the mix that we're looking at. I mentioned this will be in tiers, and we're taking a look and trying to prioritize those projects. A couple things that are coming down the pike now is that we are developing a new branding guideline book that will replace the one that's on Inside NFPA, that will be available for all staff if you're working with a vendor or need to understand better what the branding guidelines mean for you and your projects. It'll be on Inside NFPA. We're also going to develop a branding boot camp for folks inside who want to understand more and learn more how to use those branding guidelines. We'll be doing some training in-house. The goal is that by the end of the first quarter of 2018, which is not too far away, that all of our assets will be in a process, a system now to update them to up to the branding guidelines. A couple of tools for staff that are being developed and worked on now, and we're going to roll them out probably within the next week. First are new PowerPoint templates. Whether you're doing a presentation in-house or you're doing it for external audiences, we would ask that when we roll out the new template, it'll be posted on Inside NFPA, that you use that new branding template. It's the same template we're using for this presentation here. And we'll have some instructions because it's a new way of, that Forge created this template that I think it's an easier way to use. It's just a different way of building a PowerPoint presentation. The second piece that we'll be rolling out in the next week or so is a new email signature. And we've done email signatures before. We'll be updating that and sending it around. We would ask that everyone please take a look at your signature in Outlook and update it. And again, it's not a huge change, but what we're really trying to do is have everyone include this branding tagline here. It's a big world, let's protect it together, on their email signature. In the meantime, as I mentioned, the branding team, this is us. We got Marianne and me and Cheryl and Ben and Doug and Amanda. The team may grow. This is the team as it stands now. We would ask that if you have any questions about branding guidelines, any projects that are coming up, you don't know how to use the guidelines or have questions about them, is just to email the team at branding@nfpa.org. And we would ask that you do this rather than just contacting us individually, because if you use the email address, we all get copied on that, and then we can sort of get together and collaborate to figure out where does this fit in the tiers and the prioritization. So with that, I'll say we'll look forward to seeing our brand come to life, continue to come to life, and we appreciate your support and patience with the process. So, any questions? Getting off easy. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Does anybody know what today is? It's a very special day. Yes, get connected. I heard that. What? Get your assessments done by the end of today, August 31st. Bamboo should be top of mind. If you have already done it, raise your hand. Let's give, oh my gosh. That's not true. I get a report, guys. I know.
The dashboard would say otherwise.
All right. Thank you for those of you who have completed it. Another show of hands. Who had any kind of technical trouble? A little technical trouble. It crashed on you.
What's your technology challenge?
Okay, Keith and Chelsea. Excellent. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, and Chuck. Keith and Chuck. Okay, I'm seeing a pattern. Excellent. All right. If you did have any feedback for us, good, bad, or indifferent, please let us know. It is a new system, a new platform. We're trying to work out the bugs. Most of the feedback has been fairly positive, which is great. We do have, I'm not kidding, I actually do have a dashboard to see who and how many have completed. So, so do please make sure you get that done today. It does shut off. So if you haven't completed it, that'll be your chance for this month. Yep. Coming down on the wire there, are we? He's asking for a friend. Kelly, what is it, 5 p.m., midnight?
9:20.
9:20? Well, yeah, 9:20, right. Sorry. Midnight. You have until midnight. So you can kick off.
You just let them off the hook.
That's right. So you can spend your Thursday afternoon, hopefully not too many glasses of wine in. You want it, right on point. Anyway, thank you. We've got a tight timeline. I just wanted to make sure we are definitely making sure everybody gets that done. Managers especially, employees are looking for that feedback. They want to know where they stand, so do take the time to put those together well. Also, the handbook, for those of you who have not yet heard, we do have a updated, streamlined, beautiful handbook, employee handbook. There have been some changes in the handbook. Nothing terribly surprising. We took some stuff out that we don't need anymore. For instance, we had a whole practice around check cashing. I don't know if anybody's used that recently, but we took that out. We don't do that anymore. But there are a number of things. You can see our new benefits that we rolled out last year in terms of sick time and short-term disability and maternity and paternity leave, parental leave. We have a number of updated policies and practices, but again, nothing really surprising. One fun thing we put in, Courtney, where are you? Volunteer. We have a new volunteer policy, which starts in January of 2018. You'll have an opportunity to choose a charity of your choice and take one day off, up to one day off a year to volunteer and lend a hand with stuff. I point out Courtney because she was on our events committee, and that was one of the things that she had suggested and put forward. So, so keep those ideas coming, because some of them actually happen. So we like when that happens. And I think that was the only other benefit I wanted to mention, and then I'll toss it over to Jim for the rest.
Great. Thanks, Julie. So a couple of things I wanted to give you that came out of the board meeting that we had in June. Relative to the pension plan, this is, I think, a great piece of news and a great example of our board's commitment to the employees at NFPA. The long-term health of the pension, our pension plan has always been in great shape, but the board actually agreed to contribute an additional $9 million in funding above and beyond the normal funding that we put in place. The important part about this is you'll hear people talk about funding of pension plans, and there's the way is the IRS say it's funded, there's the way that the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation says it's funded, there's the, who else, Bruce? There's the way FASB says it's funded. By doing this, we are funded by any measure that you want to look at 100% or above. So we are a fully funded pension plan by any measure that you want to look at. That is something not many organizations and companies can say to this today. So that is great news and a great example of the board really being active and proactive in making sure that we carry things forward. So that is a good piece of news. What we also did as we began to look at the pension plan is we said we needed to do something a little different as we bring people into the organization. One of the things that we found out is that what is out in the marketplace today is that defined contribution 403B plans that have a match, and I'll explain that in a minute, are much more competitive recruitment tools than defined benefit pension plans, because defined benefit pension plans just don't exist in a lot of places today. So as of January 1st, for new employees, we are putting in place a 403B plan that is more portable, it's more flexible, it's more individual in nature than what a defined benefit plan. So here's the really important part of this whole discussion, because right now everybody is going, wait, what's happening? What's this mean to me? So I'm going to be as clear as I possibly can. If you are vested in the pension plan, that means if you have been here for more than 5 years, absolutely nothing changes for you, okay? That is the majority of you in this room, okay? That's an important thing to keep in mind. If you are not yet vested in the plan, that means people that have been here between 0 and 5 years, then you'll have a choice that you can make. That choice can be you can stay exactly in the defined benefit plan that you have, or you can make a choice to move to the new plan. And I'll talk a little more about that. So that's the most important thing I need for you to understand in the room. If everybody chose to stay exactly where it was today, you are in the pension plan, nothing changes, you do nothing. Okay? So what's that defined contribution plan look like? It'll be, we'll start it in January. New hires after October 1st, 2017 will be enrolled in this plan as the retirement plan that they have. So anybody that we hire after October 1st, this will be the plan that they're in. The plan design is basically we contribute 6% of salary into the contribution. We'll do an additional match of 2% if the employee puts in 2%. That would be for a total of 10% that would go into a defined contribution plan. So that's what the design of the plan looks like. That is an extremely competitive plan in the marketplace. So this is for NFPA, as we recruit, as we bring people in from the outside, this allows us to be much more competitive, allows us to have plans that are much more flexible. So that's what the plan will look like. Again, for the vast majority of people in the room, you look at that and go, that's nice, I'm not impacted because I'm vested in the pension plan, and that's where you'll, then that pension plan will continue to accrue, continue to grow, continue to act just like it has always acted, as it was yesterday and as it still is today. All employees are able to defer voluntary contributions into this new 403B plan. Now, we have a voluntary contribution 403B plan today where employees choose to defer some part of their salary. There's no match, there's nothing associated with that, but you choose to defer part of your salary into a 403B plan. That will still be the case with this. So again, who's impacted? If you have 5+ years of service, there's no impact. Pension plan's the same, it accrues just like it did. For existing employees, that 0 to 5 years, you will have the choice, which means, you know, you've got a little bit of homework that we'll help you with. You can stay in the pension plan, again, same as it was yesterday, as it is today, or you can choose to move to the new 403B plan. HR will contact you individually if you're in that category, and we will have experts on site that will help you with that. This is a decision that you make. It's not a decision that NFPA makes. So we will have people on site from both the pension side and from Fidelity, from the 403B side, that will help to work with you. We'll have calculations that you can look at, but the choice ultimately of what to do is an individual choice that you make. Am I being really clear on this? So if not, somebody nod the other way, because I don't want anybody, leaving going, oh my gosh, my pension plan has changed. It hasn't. There's a choice from 0 to 5. Nothing has changed for 5 years plus. New hires. So for managers and HR, the reason why we say October 1st, by the way, is because just like with the pension plan, there's a waiting period that occurs before you can participate in plans. And in this case, October 1st, the waiting time, January 1st would be the date that people could participate. So that's why we say it's a January 1st plan, but it affects employees from October 1st on from a hiring perspective. And so HR will already be using that in part of the recruiting tools to say, this is what the retirement plan at NFPA looks like, and we've communicated that with employees that we would be bringing on board. Now, the voluntary 403B plan that we have today, well, we have a number of them. Diversified, Fidelity, Scudder, and Vanguard. So if you participate in the voluntary 403B plan today, pay attention to this because there is some impact simply because of the investment choices that go on. Effective January 1st, 2018, those plans will not take further contributions into that plan. If you want to voluntarily defer part of your salary in the voluntary plan, it will go into the new 403B plan. So, and we'll also have an option that we'll work on with people individually that you can move your balance from one into the new plan if you wanted to, but that's a choice. The important thing is if you are deferring salary contributions come January 1st, it will go into the new 403B plan that is managed by Fidelity. The number of investment options shrink, but the upside of that is it's now considered, since it is that 403B plan is also the retirement plan that we're using for new employees, it's what is referred to as an ERISA plan, which means there's oversight to the plan. So our plan managers will be, and our investment advisors will be looking at all of those funds in that plan that are available. If one's not performing well, their job is to go, that fund shouldn't be in the plan, we need to replace it with a fund that we believe, or that they believe, that the performance will be better. So if you currently defer voluntary contributions into the 403B, we will have information for you as we go through open enrollment that will talk about what that looks like January 1st on. We still have a voluntary deferral that can be done. It's just now it will be a Fidelity, and it will, the investment options, instead of looking like a list of whatever it is, Bruce, 100 or so, it'll be a much smaller list. Things that you invest in, bonds, stocks, all those, there'll be funds available for all of those. So it's, when we say the number of options, it's not about those number of broad categories, it's about the number of funds available in each of those categories. Okay? So, more limited number of funds, but oversight with the investment advisors that we use, and so that's a very positive change for the 403B plan on the voluntary side as well. Questions? Yes, Marty.
Are there any changes in fees associated with this?
Bruce, you want to?
Yeah, so we're actually just busy finalizing the 403B plan at the moment, so we're still going through a due diligence on identifying which funds are going to be in. So there will be a slightly different fee structure, but it's going to be very competitive. We have with our existing Fidelity fund, we have fairly competitive fees, and these fees will be as competitive, but until we finalize that fund lineup, we don't know what those exact fees are going to be, but we'll have that information available in the next couple of weeks.
Other questions? Yep, Nathaniel.
Those of employees who join between 0 and 5, they have already worked a number of years in the pension plan, not quite vested. They chose to move for 403B. Are they, because they missed 4 years, for example, of matching?
Yeah, so all valid question. I think. Yeah, so, yeah, because I forgot we're doing the online piece too. So the question was, you know, if you're between 0 and 5 years and you've got 3 years into the pension plan or 4 years into the pension plan and you decide to go to the 403B plan, what happens to the 4 years? The, the answer is, my short version of the answer is, that accrues assuming that you vest in the pension plan, right? But it would stop at that 4-year structure. So we're going to give, for everybody in that situation, we're going to give you individual sets of calculations that are particular to you, that show where it is in the pension plan, and obviously you can do the math on the 403B plan, but we have some of those pieces as well, and that's how you can make the decision. So my best answer to that is, we will give you all of the tools that will allow you to make that decision effectively, along with using the advisors that we bring on, or the advisors that we would have here from both the pension side and the Fidelity side. Bruce, did you want to?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me? So just very specifically, if you take somebody who's got 3 years of service in the defined benefit plan at the moment, you're not vested, but under ERISA regulations, obviously no one is ever allowed to take a benefit away from you. So if you decide that you want to go into the 403B defined contribution, your 3 years of service in that defined benefit plan, the benefit gets frozen at that time, but your vesting service continues. So if you've worked for us for 3 years and you choose to go into the defined contribution plan, the 3 years service that you've done will be frozen. You won't accrue any additional benefit service, but if you stay with NFPA for another 3 years, you do become vested. You do more than 5 years, you've now got 6 years, you become vested, but it's only 3 years of benefit service. So you will vest in that benefit. It will be relatively small benefit, but you will vest in that benefit, and then you'll be entitled to take it at the earliest at age 55 or 65 at normal retirement date. So the service is broken up into 2 categories, vesting service and benefit service. Your benefit service will be frozen if you choose to go into the new plan. And then your vesting service continues while you work for us.
And that ends our retirement planning seminar. So it's a fair question, and Bruce's answer is a great answer. But as you can see, you've been here 1 year. The same things apply, but that's 1 year of service. You've been here 4, it's 4. And so it's a very individual approach to this, and that's why we'll give you all the individual tools to be able to look at it. And again, if you do nothing, you're in the pension plan just like you were yesterday. You know, it doesn't change. Yes. So the advisors that we will have in place here from Fidelity, and you're talking about like in the 403B voluntary side, that again is something you need to talk to your individual investment advisor. The folks that will be here from Fidelity will certainly tell you about the funds that they have in the program that we will have in place. They're still going to leave it, I suspect, to you as a decision to say, here's what this means, here's where that is, and you know, you make a decision as to what that needs to happen. Bruce, do you want to?
This won't actually be specific advice, but we will map all the existing funds that we have under our existing 403B. We will map what the new options are. So we'll say, if this fund is no longer available, this new fund maps will be an equivalent fund for you to move into. So we're not going to give you advice as to which fund to go in. We're just going to say this old fund is now mirrored in this new fund.
Will there be a pathway to stay with your original 403B? In other words, if you were with, say, Vanguard, is there going to be a pathway to transition to some other mechanism or tool or instrument?
You can stay in the old plan is still going to stay intact. NFPA is not going to allow any additional contributions come January 1st, 2018. So you can keep your Vanguard. If you're with Vanguard, you can keep your funds in Vanguard. You just can't add to it through NFPA. So you can keep it. If you want to centralize it all with Fidelity, you can do that. But that was a question on, moving existing funds.
Dennis, and then,
That answered my question.
okay.
We don't need to roll over anything.
No, I think the important thing that Bruce said, I want to be really clear about it, is that if you're going to do voluntary contributions to the 403B in January, those contributions will be made from, the contributions that come out of your paycheck that are the deferral contributions will go to Fidelity. Your existing stuff will still be the existing stuff that's there, or they'll map you an option to move it to Fidelity if you want it. That'll be a choice you can make. Nancy.
Where did the $9 million come from that went into
So, good question, Nancy. So, Nancy Schwartz wanted to know where the $9 million came from. It was actually the slide. It was actually 12.5 million, Nancy. So it was 9 million additional on top of our regular contribution of 3.5 million, and that money came out of our. We have a money market account at the moment that's been somewhat depleted. We moved funds, 10 million out of a money market account, but this is coming out of, at the moment, this is coming out of NFPA's cash reserves. We have sufficient cash reserves to fund this contribution. We didn't actually take any money out of our general reserves, but effectively that's, if this money would have gone into the general reserves, and instead the board agreed, rather than put it into the general reserves, they would allow us to move that cash into the pension fund and fund the pension fund.
Other questions? Actually, I was going to say it came out of a safe in the back part of the basement. That's why we moved everybody out of there. Was yes.
Are the advisors, I know you said it, you've gone over it a bunch of times now, but the advisors can help if you were doing voluntary contributions to one of the existing 403Bs in the NFPA. What about like existing 403Bs from previous years of other companies? Will they help us roll over into?
The new advisors are always happy for you to roll into their funds.
Yeah, Fidelity, there will be one opportunity for existing NFPA employees. If you're in our existing 403B plan with Fidelity, and you want to move everything across to the new plan, you will be able to arrange that with Fidelity, and there will be like a group transfer, and everything will be moved across automatically. But if you're in a 403B plan from a previous employer, that's going to be a one-off. You won't probably be eligible for that group transfer. You'll have to do a one-off transfer, and they're a little bit tricky because the other companies don't want you to move your money, so they make life as difficult as possible. But Fidelity will definitely help you in pointing, in the process of how you do it. But unfortunately, Fidelity can't do it for you. You have to contact your previous fund to get it moved across.
Other questions? Okay, just to go over one more time. Was there, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Brian.
Does this apply to like Roth IRAs as well for the contribution from NFPA?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So, in terms of your investment, your choice of where that, if in terms of the existing new plan will have the Roth 403B functionality as well.
Okay, thank you.
So, 5 years or more of service. Your fully funded pension plan continues to do what it's always done. Okay? 0 to 5 will give you the information and have the folks here on site that can help you work through a decision on the choice that you want to make. Ultimately, that choice is one that you will make. And you could decide to stay in the current pension plan. You could decide to move to the 403B match. After October 1st, new employees that we bring on will be enrolled in the new 403B plan. Participants in the voluntary deferral, those will go into the new 403B plan as of January 1st. Okay? Now, do me a favor, because we have to do this at Avon following this. So when you leave here, don't pick up the phone and call your folks in Avon and yell, the retirement plan is changing. Because as you can see, it's important that you get the entire story and not part of the story. And so give them the same courtesy that you've gotten at being able to hear the entire story of what's happening. This is, I mean, when you look at what the board action did to fully fund the pension plan, when you look at us being able to do a more competitive plan for recruiting purposes, this is all great stuff that a lot of organizations and a lot of companies can't do. And so we're very, very fortunate to be in the position where we can offer you know, the plans that we're able to offer at NFPA. So it's all really positive news. Okay, I'm going to leave that. Oh, what's next? HR will contact you if you're in that choice category. Financial advisors will be available. The decision to make, staying in the plan, changing, all that is on October 16th. So we will schedule the advisors and stuff to be here, and HR will begin to work through that, so we'll make sure that you have the availability to both the information and to the advisors. Yeah, Robert.
What's BPS&M?
They manage our pension. They're the actuaries that manage the pension fund today.
So sorry, what's the connection with Wells Fargo? I thought they...
Okay, good. So BPS&M is Bryan, Pendleton, Squires, and Milner. It was a separate company. So Wells Fargo actually had 100% owned BPS&M probably about a year ago. They actually sold BPS&M to another large actuarial firm called Findlay Davies. The relationship between Wells Fargo and BPS&M, they're still a strategic partner. Wells Fargo just don't own them anymore, but we still pay all our fees. We deal with Wells Fargo on an actuarial basis. Our contract with Wells Fargo is still the same. They subcontract with BPS&M to do all our actuarial valuation. So BPS&M is an independent. They've done all the calculations for the pension fund. But you know, that relationship, although the ownership has changed, as far as NFPA is concerned, the relationship hasn't changed.
Okay. I'm past that slide. So, on to another really exciting thing that actually came to us from NFPA's perspective and that we're taking advantage of, and it's around the whole idea of fire and life safety education. So I want you to imagine a couple of things for a minute. The first thing is, imagine that it's a typical scenario that's played out in a lot of places around the country. A few folks got together and had a few people in it in a particular area, and somebody that was really interested in old fire apparatus, and they sat down and said, we should do a fire museum. And so they began to have this dialogue about a fire museum, and this has happened so many times over and over again around the country. But this time it was a little different. What happened down in Alabama is that the story began to unfold a little differently. And what started as this conversation around what could we do with this great collection of old fire apparatus that a retired fire captain had and wanted to stick in a barn somewhere so that people could see it, really took a turn to something completely different. A very active county manager that was involved, very active local community, a very active fire service, really began to take this idea and begin to change it into something that could look completely different. And what they ended up coming up with was they created the idea for the National Center for Fire and Life Safety. Because they said it's bigger than just old fire apparatus. It's how do we actually go in and change the way that people learn about fire safety overall. And that's the vision that they established. And so this happened down just outside of the Birmingham area, and they began to put this idea together about what a National Center for Fire and Life Safety would look like. Now, imagine at the same time an organization that you know very well and whose vision and mission you should be able to recite by heart, and that has a passion for fire safety across the world. Imagine that organization who tries to teach people about fire safety in a lot of different ways, and this is a little bit about what it looks like. We do some things in schools and some things with media and partner organizations, and the local fire service has really been our biggest key in the fire and life safety education that we do with respect to the public. But I'll also imagine that it's an organization that's constantly having a conversation about, should we be doing this differently? And we've began to toil around the edges of this to say, how do you get directly to the consumer? How do you make a difference? You guys have asked that question before. Is there a way that NFPA would get directly to the consumer? And certainly, we've done some of that. Our social media does it, some of the digital campaigns that we do, but our reach was still smaller. So how do you change that direct to the consumer model, and how do you get fire and life safety education, meaningful information into the hands of the people that need it the most, and that's the public? So now, imagine if you took these two ideas and you said, what could happen if I put those two ideas together? And that's essentially what we've done. And so I'm really, really proud to tell you today that that National Fire and Life Safety Center that they are putting together and building, we have signed on to be the title sponsor for a really key component of that Fire and Life Safety Center called the NFPA Heroes Experience. And this is no small thing, because that's what it looks like. So that's an artist rendering on the Fire and Life Safety Center campus of what the Heroes Experience is expected to look like. We don't own that. That's part of their campus. What we really said as NFPA is we want to be a key part of this. And so we essentially signed an agreement with them to be the title sponsor out of this. So what is correct on the rendering, if you want to think of it in simple terms, is the NFPA logo on the side of the building. Yep, that's the type of things that we're talking about. And this is no fire museum. This is a much different experience where you have to think in terms of, you know, museum meets Disney World in some ways. This is an interactive experience that people will be able to go through and learn more, not only about what the fire service does and the important role that they play, but also about fire and life safety overall. It's a different way of getting audience expectations and taking them into an immersive experience that they can see the importance of fire and life safety education in a much different way than what they have before. And I'm going to take you through a little bit about what this vision looks like that's underway today. Now, this started a year and a half ago that they began, well, 2 years ago that they began the concept of this. And this is not a small thing. There are some big players that are looking at this. The designers that are involved, Werner Johnson, this is what they do, is they design these types of environments and experiences. They've done the NASCAR Hall of Fame, the Smithsonian, work at the Louvre, Discovery Park of America, and 200 other plus worldwide attractions that they do the design work on. BRC Imagination Arts, Coca-Cola, Disney, Ford, Nickelodeon, Universal. These are the folks that professionally design experiences for you to go through. So if you've been to Universal Studios and went through one of those experiences that are there, probably a good chance that BRC was involved in the design of that. So we're not talking about a museum design. We're talking about something that we can take in a much different way and really get visitors to emerge with an idea and a different view about fire and life safety. We want to empower folks to make common sense decisions. We want to immerse them in stories and be able to have them have an emotional experience around the learnings that they're taking on and taking in place. Practical hands-on activities, and be able to take actions that ultimately help drive our mission forward. It's also been a big focus of theirs to talk about STEM education. So if you think about this as a place where school kids show up Yep, this is a place where they show up and immerse themselves in that experience. Now, why did we see this as important for what we do? Well, one, it's that thing we've been talking about. How do we bring this public education experience that we've been doing for a long time, but how do we bring it across the country? And by doing this, we get a voice in the content and messaging that happens. It becomes a research test bed for different messaging. Think about people that would go through this experience, and we expose them to messaging that we've come up with, and we're able to get feedback and understand how they react to that. Is it effective? Did they remember it? So it gives us a real test bed of a way to deliver new information. And it creates a better understanding of the role of codes and standards. Our core that we've had for a really long time, we'll integrate that into this thinking that we have around this heroes experience. Why does Alabama make sense? Now, I could say because it was their idea, okay? And there's some truth to that, all right? It took a set of visionaries really on their end that came up with this, that again started as a fire museum but grew into something much bigger. But it also makes sense from our mission perspective. That map shows you where 25% of the fire deaths in the United States occur. The fire death rate in those states is more than twice the national rate. Now, granted, I might not get the people from Alaska, okay, that are necessarily driving by, but for those other states that you see around the Alabama area, all within a pretty easy distance to learn something different about fire and life safety, it makes a difference with respect to our mission. The timeline, fundraising and design completion, that National Center for Fire and Life Safety is its own nonprofit that exists. The expectation out of this is that they will fundraise to actually build the campus, and then it will operate as, however you want to refer to, a museum / attraction / destination, if you will, and that operation is what will continue the ability of it to continue on into the future. Construction likely in 2019 with the idea of completion and opening of the campus in 2020. So it is more than on paper right now. I mean, there are designers working on the layout of this whole thing as we speak. The location is right off of I-65 just outside of Birmingham. And why is that important? To give you an example of what's already been spent by the local folks in doing this, they've done the economic studies, they've done the feasibility studies, they've done the impact studies that have to occur. They've created all of the numbers to say, if you build this, can it actually sustain itself? I'll give you an example from my original home state of Kentucky. The Corvette Museum, the National Corvette Museum, sits on an interstate on I-65 as you go through Kentucky. It's just outside of Bowling Green, Kentucky, where there is nothing. There's a GM plant that builds Corvettes, but there is nothing. They do about 210,000 visitors a year to the Corvette Museum. Why? Because it's on the interstate as people pass by, going from one place to the other. So this is not like Disney World where you go spend 4 days, but we are talking about something that right on this I-65 corridor, which for those of you that are beach people, this is the route that people from the Midwest go south to go to the beach out of this. Over 15 million cars travel past this site on an annual basis. And it's not just about the cars that are passing by. I mean, they'll do promotion and other sorts of things to bring folks into the facility. But this radically changes how we begin to think about how we can reach people. Now, those of you that are in the marketing and the pub ed space, your heads are spinning right now of thinking of ideas of the way you could begin to use this differently. That's why we're thinking about this in a way different way than what we had before. Probably not something that we would have done 10 or 20 years ago, because that model that I showed you, we left it to others to deliver the message. And this is about us, how do we get a hands-on piece? The great thing about it is, in that heroes experience, there'll be a permanent place for NFPA, so we will be able to have our presence right in that experience itself. So what we do, why we do it, things that we're talking about, we'll be able to have that on an ongoing basis and rotate through our marketing campaigns, our public education campaigns on a continual basis. Just to give you some ideas, some things inside, they have the idea of there's the Heroes Call Theater. Think about that as you go into a room like this, sit in front of the theater, and this sort of immersive experience that goes on. As they say, enter as a layperson and exit as a rookie firefighter. Their idea is to start, for those of you in the fire service, the whole thing starts with the guys around the kitchen table. And it ends with what it looks like to respond to a call and being able to put folks into that experience firsthand. Things like the hub, which is out in the middle, which is the place not only that you can interact with different pieces of equipment, but it's also the place where it draws you into as you come out of the theater and you're able to talk with the staff there, talking about staffing it actually with a lot of folks that are either current or former firefighters, so they can give you that firsthand experience. We'll have to train them not to tell the really gruesome stories that they know. We don't want to scare the children out of the event. And then there are different zones that they've got designed for home, for transportation, for work and school, for nature and community. And you can think through every one of those zones and think about the role that NFPA plays in each of that. And that's the really great thing about being the title sponsor is we have key input into what the messaging looks like to make sure it's consistent with the messaging that we as an organization want to see and being able to build out around that. So some other things that they have in the design at this point, the Hall of Heroes, where it's really the person in the experience that's the hero. That they can bring them through and actually sort of sign their pledge to fire safety. And if you think about that in both kids and adults, lots of opportunity there to immerse people in the experience. As well as a tribute hall to honor past and present personnel in the fire service and showcasing the evolution of the fire service. Already talking about technology, RFID bands that they're building in, that's the ticket. That not only in terms of acts like your ticket, but it also gives you ability to gain things throughout the experience that you can add. Then you can log on to the website, be able to see where you are, and we can continue to supply you information after you well leave the experience. So you think about what people react to, which things they go to, which other ones that they don't. So already employing technology to design this in a much different way than what you would think of a typical, if they would have left it as a fire museum. And then, places again for the kids, the playground, the splash pad. They're talking about K through 12 kids coming there. They're talking about birthday parties that they can do, a real way to actually draw people into this experience. And mobile education centers. Think of an 18-wheeler that's got a mobile version of some of these experiences that travels the country. My vision of it is it's driving down the highway with the big NFPA logo on the side of it, of this, and shows up at places to actually talk about fire and life safety education. So that's sort of what the rendering of their campus looks like today. I'm sure as they get to final design that'll change some. If you haven't noticed by now, what does the main Hero Center look like? A ladder truck. Good, that means their design caught on. Wasn't done by accident that way, by the way. But I hope, some great work that's been done on this already by Lorraine. She's been actually chairing an advisory group for them. Some great work by Sally and the legal team at ultimately putting all the agreements together and stuff. But we are now on our way with this project that will move forward. So I hope, and I realize you've gotten a quick dose of this, but I hope you get as excited about this as I do, as something that is really different for NFPA in a way to communicate ultimately to the public the messages that we want to make sure that they receive around fire and life safety. So really, really exciting stuff as we get into the next few years. I'm already looking forward to the ribbon cutting of this thing as we see people coming in and experiencing this firsthand. So, questions? Yes?
Do we at NFPA have final say about what is exhibited?
So the question was, do we have final say about what was exhibited? We've created this in a way to where we have probably the biggest voice around what messaging is being talked about. What we've been very clear about is we're not the designers of the experience. That's not our forte. So the idea of in those zones, what that experience looks like, we're leaving that to the experts. What we want to make sure is that the messaging is consistent with what NFPA messaging would be. That's how we viewed the most important part to us from the NFPA perspective. So, you know, if you're trying to say, do we have final veto rights of whether the color is red or blue that goes in? Not so much, and we don't want those. It's not, we're a partner in this from a titling and a naming perspective. It's still ran by the National Center for Fire and Life Safety. Other questions? Yes. Great question. How did we get involved in this? So, who showed up? Ken, Lorraine, myself. Who else was with us in Alabama? Chris, who's not here today. So we happened to be down. We were doing visits with the Birmingham Fire Department, as well as some the fire college that was down in Tuscaloosa. And as we were down there, they found out we were coming in, and when we got to the fire college, the gentleman who's the executive director for this project actually took an opportunity to introduce us to the idea that they had for this project. And so, as you can imagine, in our usual way, we have been talking about this in every way from Sunday about, is this thing feasible? Does it make sense? They essentially opened up everything to us and said, here's the feasibility studies, and these weren't done by them. These were economists, people that do this for a living that they hired because they want this to be as successful as anybody does. They opened all that up to us, and we sat down and evaluated it and said, this really makes sense for NFPA to be involved in this. So it was a visit to Alabama is how we really found out about it. Not a lot outside of that local area. Hasn't been a lot of discussion about this going on. You will see my column in Journal. Where's Scott? When's Journal come out? In about a week. My column in Journal actually talks about us being involved with the project, which was why it was really important that we all have this conversation before it shows up externally. So, you know, we were timing everything out to getting all the agreements done, to getting that finalized, to making sure we're having the employee conversation on to actually talking about it publicly. And we'll begin to put the tools together. We're gonna also help them, you know, from the fundraising side of the equation. So I'll be working with them on visits to various places to help do fundraising for it, because not only from NFPA's perspective, but personally, I see this as a huge way we can make a difference in those red, particularly in those red states that you saw on the map, and being able to actually save more people from the tragedy of fire and those related hazards. Some other hands were up. Yep.
Will NFPA have any oversight on the technical messaging that goes out from here?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's when I say consistent with our message, I mean, one of the things, it was going to be the case anyway, but we said, oh, and by the way, what you're talking about in that technical messaging, you know, the fire service, we want to make sure they're involved in how's that portrayed and what's that look like to the public. So absolutely, will be a broad cross-section. Yes?
Who's financing?
So we paid for naming rights to be the title sponsor. That's the, you know, that's one of the quote-unquote financing pieces of this. And then there'll be, you know, those call zones that you saw, other sponsorship opportunities that people will have. That will be the way that this initial funding will actually get happen to build the event itself. So I suspect there, again, hasn't been socialized a lot externally. I suspect and all of you in this space can begin to think of people in your head going, oh, I know a group that would be interested in making sure that they could be involved in some way to this. We'll be talking to all those groups from the funding perspective. Yeah, Michelle.
Jim, is there an internal team, or is it, if you have a great idea, who am I sending it to? You, Rain?
At this point, it's Lorraine. The team has been Lorraine, Bruce, myself, and Sally so far because it was important we get through this initial stage. But Lorraine and I are already talking about what's this look like going forward, because we'll need and by the way, we fundamentally bought lifetime naming rights for this thing, not 10-year naming rights out of this. So our expectation of involvement for this is well into the future. Yes. So the question was, as part of the plan for a conference center, that's in this rendering. That's actually what this is. We're having some discussion about that right now as to how would it be utilized and what would that mean. I mean, they'd love to say, oh, we could have 365 days worth of conferences. They need to make sure they get a little practical about that. So it is in the plans. Whether that gets done up front still remains a question mark. Yes, Jack.
How about the trainings that are test lab? Can I see a bullet point on that? Or?
Yeah. So it will give us the ability to sort of be a test lab for the ways we want to deliver information in new ways. So it could be training. It could be, I mean, part of the question about the conference center is if they had one, would we hold training programs that could potentially be there? Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility that we could do. There's also an idea of whether it's that back building or whether it's built more integral to this. They have an idea of behind people actually locating research folks there, primarily around human research, human factor research, where you could take advantage of the audience that you have coming through and be able to test things in a different way. You know, they have longer term visions of, because there's more property behind this, of could there potentially be, you know, fire training grounds, not for the professional firefighter, but more of what that experience looks like, and so forth. So there's, you know, they continue to dream about what this could be. Our focus primarily right now is around this heroes experience that we've talked about, which would be the main, sort of the main attraction at it. Yes. So, yeah, I think the important thing you have to remember about like this is this has to run as an operation. So you're talking about staff people. You're not talking about volunteers that are doing things. So they've got the ability to run this the way that, you know, the same way Disney says, we expect our people to be interacting and talking with folks this way. So you have to kind of think of it in that term versus in our normal, we put out messaging and volunteers go talk about these things. So yeah, it can be a little more structured around what is it that we're trying to convey, what's the point that's trying to get across, how's that important. So the monitoring part, I don't want an NFPA person that's having to be there going, oh, that, no. Yeah. You should say that again a different way. From, sure. Well, we will never, I mean, you know, trust but verify as a familiar phrase was in the past. So I think it's important. I mean, again, I want to stress, we don't own this and we don't want to own this. You know, we're not in the entertainment business. What we want to do is use folks that are in that business as a way to be able to better educate you know, the public about this. So sure, you know, there'll be a whole structure behind what the messaging needs to be, what that looks like, what story gets told, all of that we want to have. And they'll want to be consistent because they want to make sure that they're delivering a consistent experience for folks that go through it as well. I'll do a few more. This could go on forever. Ron?
Jim, do you foresee NFPA stationing more and more employees there?
It's a good question. I mean, I got to ask that somewhere through this process. And the answer to that, I don't know. I mean, if this thing goes the way that it has the potential to, I mean, I could see you, if you're in the public education space, it's saying we should have a public education person that's there, you know, in that building that's there, and that's where they work and operate out of, because they want to be constantly seeing what that interaction looks like and how that gathers. There'll be rooms that will be, space that will be there for meetings. There'll be space that will be there for office space that could be available. So all those things are possibilities into the future. Kathy? Yep. So actually, schools do pay quite a bit to go to these things. The McGuane Science Center that's in downtown Birmingham, I'll get the numbers wrong, Bruce, but 300,000 that go through the McGuane Science Center, I think.
Yeah, that's about that, yep.
That go through, that the vast majority of all those are paid folks that go through. There's a discounted rate for schools. They are talking about, particularly if you think in terms of how could I get, you know, a rural area of Mississippi to be able to get school kids there. They all talking about that may be an ongoing corporate sponsorship that they could do, is to say, I want to get this group of school kids in, would you guys sponsor them to be able to make that happen? The sustainability model actually looks pretty good from the standpoint of revenue generated by the facility itself. You know, you think in terms of there'll be a gift shop there. I envision Sparky merchandise, right? You know, in the gift shop at this thing. We've already said, by the way, that the kids area will be called the Sparky's Kids Zone in this, that we've already put into these. So, you know, there's a whole different opportunity for what we do around Sparky and for what that interaction begins to look like. Wherever Peg is, one of your suits may have a permanent location down in down here at this center. So look, the possibilities are endless. We can, and you can ask me on and on about going, could it be this, could it be that? My answer is going to be, yes, it could be, to just about any of those questions you're going to ask. We, being on the front end of this, we've got the ability to help set what this begins to look like from a fire and life safety messaging perspective. And that's the really, really cool part about it. Hey, Chris. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, what they tell you is you don't want to go there in these things. Every one of these that's successful is not anywhere that there's a giant attraction that goes on, because you're competing with those places in that case, and the feasibility studies show that they lose every time. Museums or other, what I would just call single-day event places like this that are around the Orlando area are struggling, because everybody's going to Disney World and going to Universal. I go back to my Corvette Museum. Limited audience, right, of people that want to go to the Corvette Museum. It's primarily Corvette aficionados that want to go there. But yet they're putting more than 200,000 people a year through the museum just because of drive-by business that happens. So, and again, I could sit here and give you all sorts of opinions. We left all that to the professionals to be able to look at. So like I said, the economists, the folks that do feasibility, Werner Johnson, whose business it is to make these things successful as they design them, you know, they're the ones that did all that stuff up front. Okay? So, yep, it's a long road to get there. Like I said, probably 2020. Lots of opportunities, though, for us along the way. So, again, I hope you're as excited about it as I am at a different way that we can get our messaging out. Julie.
I got mine.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks. I know, I'm 8 minutes over. I need the clicker. All right, I'm going to do a really quick thing because I have you all in front of me. Over here is the, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. This is like pinch me, I must be dreaming. Everything I've heard, bamboo, benefits changes, National Life Safety Science, I haven't quite figured that out yet, NFLCS, are all awesome. I cannot wait to continue working. Here is Wow, this is a lot. I've got some questions, but I'm kind of excited. And over here is, what the heck is NFPA thinking? This is completely ridiculous. Okay, raise your hand over here. Who's like, oh my God, pinch me, this is amazing. Pub ed, maybe? Okay, good, there's a few, that's good. Be honest now, change is hard. Yes, lots of questions. Bamboo, benefits, yes. Okay, others are like, oh my God, we're losing control completely. What are we doing? Off the rails. Okay, I didn't see many over there. You're probably lying, a couple of you. That's okay. Keep the feedback coming, okay? Because there's a lot going on. You new people, good luck. We got a lot happening. Frank Kingsley, where are you? Are you here? Stand up if you are here. Stand up if you're, he's got the day off. He left earlier. All right. Find Frank Kingsley. He is now our marketing manager in membership and subscription services. So welcome. Dakota Carpenter. Those of you who know Moira Carpenter, this is her son Dakota. He is a shipper in Avon. I don't think he's here today because he's over in Avon, working hard. All right, Melissa Forrester, are you here today? Hopefully, there she is in the back. All right, hello, Melissa, IT project manager. Names and faces of our new hires so everybody can see. Kristen Lombardi, you've probably seen her around. Where is she? Kristen, are you here today? No, also working hard somewhere else. All right, Kristen actually has been a consultant for us for a number of months, so you've probably seen her around for a good while, but she just came on as a full-time employee, Associate Project Manager in Marketing. Sean Mahoney, Associate Engineer in Engineering Tech Services. There he is, Sean. Extra points for those of you who showed up today. That's awesome. That's great. All right. Wayland Sitampalam. Where's Wayland? I knew I couldn't find you. I was going to check on that last name pronunciation, but I think I might have gotten it. Wayland, see him over in marketing. He's a marketing data analyst doing some really cool stuff, digging into all of the info we have. What? To who? Oh, he does not report to Guy. Guy, you can't have him. He does not report to Guy. He reports to Mike Quincy. Yeah, Guy will take him. All right, Brigitte, she's not Collins. This is an interesting one too. You will see, Brigitte, where are you? Brigitte, there you are. Brigitte is our new Applied Research Director. We are so excited to have her on as well. And you will see her show up in the email as Brigitte Collins because she goes by a mystery woman name there, and her Messerschmitt is the last name. Brigitte Messerschmitt, yes? All right, Brigitte just started this week. And I think, yep, we're continuing on. Look at all these new people we have. Karen Cullen, Production Manager, reporting to Jackie Doucette. And Brian Bonanno, Accounting Associate. Excellent. And Nicholas Fries, Intern, Communications, who is manning that camera that is pointed right at me. Wow, hi. Thank you guys so much. I know we kept you a little bit later. I would like to invite everybody to have a snack. We've got some items there, muffins and some fruit on the sides. Mingle, say hello to our new people. There's a lot going on. Make them feel welcome, and have a great day. Thank you.